Thank you. Thank you so much for all the presentations and for this last presentation for all the references that were done. So now I think we have a few minutes to speak and to know if there are any questions. I know that there is one, but I would like to congratulate everyone because I think these 4 presentations were very interesting because all of them brought the plaster cast or the plaster sculpture to this transdiscursive and transtemporal discourse that we have to have about this this major thematic. So I believe they were quite important to all of us. So I know that we have a question where, oh, sorry, I was about to do something wrong. We have a question by Martina Vuga to Isabella. And she says, you mentioned unfired plaster on the 7th slide from Bartholomew's inventory. Could you please explain what would an unfired plaster be? Thank you. Thank you for the question, Martina.
Yes, such a good question. I have sort of interpreted it to mean unused plaster or plaster that, particularly plaster that hasn't been used to make a mold for casting in another material. But it is a good question, and you make me want to consult with a few people about this because it is a very particular choice to use the term ongebrande, which means unburned, essentially. But my sense is that it's the sort of reserve plaster that has not yet been used because it's kept in a separate piece of furniture in this casting room.
Okay, I don't know if, are you satisfied with the answer, Martina? I don't know where Martina is. So we have another question. Oh, she says thank you. Natasha Gomez, yeah, you may speak. You may ask your question.
Thank you. My internet is a little unstable, so hopefully you can hear me. Yeah. I thought this series of papers was really, really interesting and spoke in interesting ways to each other. My question is actually for Professor Tavaira, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name.
It's fine.
Thank you. It's in a way, it's related to it's almost a follow-up to the question I asked Emily Madrigal yesterday about haunting, because I really had I really saw as a thread in many ways through your paper. So the literal, in a sense, the literal kind of dead body that goes up against the cast in a death mask, but then also this idea of the negative presence or the absent presence that you talked about in terms of the negative in photography and the negative in casting. So I just wondered if this notion of haunting is a useful kind of paradigm in thinking theoretically anyway about plaster casting. I just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Thank you very much for the question. It's really interesting, yeah. Well, for me, for my research and for the work I was doing, it was really important. This idea that well, casts in its origins had to do with this idea of preserving the image of dead people, and becoming through generations, well, the proof of something. Of course, that was probably one of the central questions, that then evolved, of course, to this idea of double negative, which is the negative of the negative, of course, and that in some way, of course, it's a double death. But it has to do with this idea that, well, if you deny another denial, where will you be? And of course, in Hegelian terms, you're in a way coming back to some kind of characterization of the first element, but in a different way. So I think what I tried to do with my film was in some way to do that process again, which is to look at the negative with another negative and see what comes out of it. And in some ways, that was the interesting part of the process, things started to show, to appear in a way that my vision was not able to see. So, of course, the mechanical image and this idea of a matrix, of a negative, of a different order, were by itself producing, well, the results. That's why in a way, I'm saying that I just, in a way, put up a kind of machine for producing these unstable, unpredictable images that are, of course, apparitions also in the sense that you're saying that they are kind of ghosts of everything, of the hands that worked on all of these materials. Of course, for you to have a mask of a dead person, someone has to put the plaster on. So, of course, it's not just the mask of the dead, but you have also the mask of the hands of the people who did that. I don't know if I answered to your question, but well, I tried.
Thank you.
I don't know if there are other questions. If there aren't, I have a question. May I? And it's to Filipa and to Gracia. You didn't refer now in your presentation, but I read in your abstract the reference to Aby Warburg study. And I'm very curious to know how, I believe, the Mnemosyne project is in fact related with your own artistic research.
Thank you so much for your question. I think that when Warburg is brought to this specific research, is somehow to balance this notion of survival of shapes, so survival of gestures, and how we can somehow build or have presented in those gypsoteques and reserves, in the way Marie-José Berqui, for instance, has been exploring in the past years, how we could find in those stories that are untold the repetition as something that brings the notion of survival. So that would be one of the axes, and then the notion of memory,
yeah,
as well.
Okay. The concept of pathos formal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Oh,
exactly.
Thank you so much.
And how the these Nachleben, how they keep surviving through time, those posthumous lives that keep reappearing according to its force. So the notion of the mold of that fragment as having some power dimension that keeps transforming or keeps its existence or relevance through times, we establish some parallel on that.
Thank you for a clear answer. Thank you, Filipa.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's another question. Isabella is saying something. Isabella, you may speak. you are writing. You have.
Yeah, no, Martina makes another Martina brought up the question of whether it could have been a mistranslation, but there are actually different words used in 17th century inventories to refer to clay versus plaster. That's one of the things I've been so interested in, is that these 17th century inventories do talk about plaster specifically. But it did occur to me as I was thinking about this that inventories are taken by non-specialists. They're taken in the 17th century, not by artists. So it's possible that somebody saw this unused material in a room that was used for casting, and that's the word that they chose to describe it, possibly having some knowledge of or some sense of casting requiring firing processes. So it could be not necessarily a mistranslation, but a kind of misunderstanding that happened at the moment of taking the inventory. It's a great question, though. I will think about it.
Great. I don't know if there is any more. I don't believe so. So we have the second session just now. I believe we are very good with time. And I want to thank you all again. I believe it was a very striking session with 4 brilliant presentations. And I leave now my chairwoman, sorry, character. And thank you so much to all of you.